Alright, so basically all we need to do here is just undo the hose clamp at the bottom here for the water hose. This is the right orientation, but they left it right up against the side. It should kind of point at an angle, so it's just really annoying because it's like you can hardly get in here now. There it is. Let's get a socket on this. Okay, this is especially a good spot. So just note how this hose clamp can only come off down the side of the housing. These guys really designed this to be very specific. See if I can actually get this off. Doesn't feel like it. And I found a lot of times with these hose clamps, if you have them too far open, they don't even fit in there down the hole. So it's just really a pain in the butt. I'm not sure if I will get this off. Doesn't look like it. Even though the hose is supple, it just molds over those ropes and it's impossible. So this is how we get these hoses off. Just take a utility knife and you just cut that first inch of the hose. You just keep going in the same spot until you feel the tip of the knife going on the copper. It's double walled enforced hose this. It's very strong. It's not like the garden hose variety. It does take a few tries. You know, if you aren't replacing this or you don't have the hose, I guess you could just fight with it, but since we always replace these, I think I got all the way through. Very hard to see in here. Plus I think these things are a little blunt. There it is. Just get this in the gap, twist it open, and the hose just comes right off. So you just slit it open. Alright, now this is the correct orientation for the Ujoint bellows hose clamp. Kind of shoots down here. Could have probably been angled slightly better, but that's good. It's generally, I like to get it so that you can get a socket on it straight. This is very good. Notice how the shift cable is not in the way here, so you absolutely need to do this before you hook the shift cable up. Wow, look how old these bellows are. You just have to wedge it off. Shouldn't be hard, but sometimes it is. Definitely put bellows on this part. I'm prying between the metal and the rubber here. Usually you can just kind of wedge these off sometimes. Not today. Yeah, that's definitely old. See all this old Ujoint bellows adhesive. Just try and pull it off and get it off. Usually find this certainly doesn't feel like bellows adhesive. It's feels like normal silicone. Bellows adhesive when it dries is really hard. Okay. We're gonna go get the bellows kit and we're gonna pretty much get this straight back on here while it's on the bench. Alright, I'm gonna just quickly go through the components that come in a general transom seal kit and explain a little bit of what they do. This is a very complete kit. There's a link to this in the description. If you're in the US, there are only two brands you should be buying, OEM or Sierra. Excellent quality. We use Sierra at the shop. They're Taiwanese, excellent rubber. They last for years and years and years. Do not fall into the trap of buying those cheap garbage kits on eBay and Amazon that are $50. You're gonna sink your boat, trust me. There's a reason we only use 2 brands at the shop. I'm gonna repeat this again. Don't fall for the garbage trap. The cheap $49, $50, $60 kits on Amazon are gonna sink your boat. Okay, so you'll get a drive gasket. This needs to be replaced. Like I said, you're going to get 2 sizes of hoses. They both work just as well. It just depends what fitting they used at the factory. In this case, it's the larger one. I believe it's 3/4, and the smaller one is 5/8. So you just put that back in the box. This fits snug over here. Just make sure that you get the size right. There's no way the 5/8 is ever going to fit. Well, I guess if I force it, yeah, it's very, very tight fit. That 3/4 goes over with a bit of a push. If you only had one, you could probably reuse the old one. You're going to get a gimbal bearing. Now you might be asking, what's this for? This is what's called a permalube bearing, which means that it doesn't have the grease hole. It can go in any orientation, and the idea is that you take the zerk out on the outside of the transom and you screw this in so that people don't try and grease this because it's a non-greasable type. We'll show you on the boat. This is the shift cable bellows. This is going to go on much later, almost at the end. We'll throw that in the box. This is the exhaust bellows. Like I said, these aren't even critical. Like a lot of the times we don't even install these. You can cut this in half and just put it on the transom and leave it open. This is the Ujoint bellows. Now these clips are only needed if you're connected to shore power and you're in the water full time, and you know there's currents and things. If you're on a trailer or freshwater, you don't need them. I just toss them. Now you'll see it says top forward here, so there is actually an orientation on these. The Alpha 1 bellows can look the same. The Gen 2s will have 2 different sides. You can't make a mistake, but with these, just pay attention to the top forward, top aft. So what you're going to need is some adhesive bellows. This does not come in the kit. We only use Quicksilver. It's like 10 bucks a tube. It goes forever. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, aft is back, and what we're going to do is find the top aft. This is the correct sequence to install bellows on a Gen 1. Gen 2, it's a different procedure, so we'll make a separate video. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, you see this ridge over here has a ridge on both sides, and there's a ridge on the bell housing there, and there's a ridge on the transom at the bottom. So you just need to make sure they go in. So what I like to do is, don't hold this necessarily downwards because it just goes all over the place. It depends. And what I do is I just lightly put a strip of this on the outside of that ridge, so that when you go to push it on, it pushes that lube in and over the groove. And I have never had one of these sealed. That's all you need. You just need a little smear. It's an incredibly tight fit. The hose clamp's going to make most of the squish out. You don't have to go and goop this on crazy. Oh, there, all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to just close this because it does kind of dry, and I like to store these upright, otherwise they ooze out and they make a mess. Okay, now what you're going to do is get your hose clamp ready. Make sure that it's very loose on here. Let's see, I think it's open enough. Okay, now remember how I explained that this flat needs to sit like that in the housing. If you look from the top down, you have to be able to get into it from here. So I'm going to line that with the bellows over there, and I'm just going to make sure, you see it says, oh, that's the wrong side, top aft. That means that the top needs to go this way, and the hose clamp is going to sit more or less like this. Now I like to put this in together because it's a little hard to fumble with the hose clamp once this is in place. And it's a real easy fit, just kind of pops over like that. I like to just give it a small twist backwards and forwards. Line there's actually a molding line there, so I know that's bottom, and just get this hose clamp, you know, rotated to where you can get to it comfortably. Make sure the hose clamp doesn't fall off the side here. You can see there it's kind of slipped off its hard to see in there, but the hose clamp has slipped past the bellows, so I just hold it in position with one hand at the back. Make sure that the hose clamp sits like this. There's 2 grooves that the hose clamp needs to sit between all around. Alright, so I've got this ready. I'm going to take my wobble socket off because I don't actually need it for this, and this is an ultra long extension. And I'm just going to start working it from here. Now bear in mind, the head of the hose clamp does want to start moving backwards, so I kind of just put it forward a little bit over here, just so that it doesn't start disappearing there as I start getting into the back side of it there. And I am a little bit of an angle. What I like about sockets is you can really wind down on these things. Okay, and Volvo Penta does have an inch-pound spec, but you know, just nice and firm is good. And as you can see, that's really on there very, very good. Okay, the next thing to do is the water tube. Let me just see here. 3/4. I remember how the tube had to kind of go up and sit like this inside the boat. So don't go and tighten it like this. You know, try and tighten it a little bit, sort of in the up position, so that it's sort of still along its kind of natural bend over there. Okay. And let's get the water pipe hose clamp. Like I said, just get this close to being tight so that if this hose clamp's too big, then you won't be able to fit it down the gap there. So just get it to where it's kind of just loose on the hose, but loose enough that it can slide over the barbs. Okay. Remember how this hose clamp had to go down, sits like this. You see how this is kind of a little bit on the exhaust, but that's not a big problem. Just make sure you seat the hose all the way down and then get it into position. And what I'm going to do is try and move that hose clamp out just a little bit so I can get to it. It's sometimes very difficult just because they make it difficult, and you kind of have to just wedge a screwdriver on the back of the hose clamp so that you can kind of rotate it to where your socket is going to be. Okay, I need to make sure that the hose clamp is not half over the barb. It needs to be completely. Let me go down a little bit with it. There we go. Okay, I'm just using a flat screwdriver behind that hose clamp. I'm just going to whale on it with my socket. This hose clamp is not sized right. I want to put. It's got a very long. Actually, I guess we can just fold it down the side. There's nothing over there that it could possibly be in the way of. Ideal, but it'll be totally fine. Bear in mind the water is actually pushing up here from the leg, so okay, that is very tight. Oh yeah, okay. And I'm just gonna get this a little bit down. Just bend it out of the way of the exhaust bellows. This hose clamp was a little long, but it's definitely not in the way of anything over there. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so that's the Ujoint bellows, the water tube's on, and next thing we're going to do is we're going to head back to the boat, and I'm just going to explain to you what we're going to do here. First thing we're going to have to do is clean this out a little here. Just get rid of this muck. Certainly looks like seawater to me. Unless it's very brackish water where they go, but it certainly looks like salt water to me, this. We'll give that a little bit more of a clean. Okay, get this gasket in the box. Before we actually get to that, I'm going to cover this seal that I was talking about earlier over here. Let's see if we can crack. So there's a little flat screwdriver over here. I mean screw. And they can be very difficult to do. Come on, come on! I need to go get my other screwdriver. Okay, so no matter what I've tried to do with that, it's just not budging. It's this corrosion. I've tried this heat, seldomly works. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to drill this. So there's this pin, this stainless pin runs all the way to the top of that nut. So you can only drill through a bit of this thing. So this is a 1/4 inch bit. What I'm going to try and do is just, this screw is screwed in an angle, so we're going to try and split it around that screw, because the threads are on this side, that side is just a pin. We have to split the arm here, so you'll see in a bit. Luckily it's aluminum, so it drills relatively easy. You'll usually feel when you get to the end. I think I'm at it now. So they kind of generally stop drilling. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take a hammer and I'm going to try and split this here, so I can get it off that little nut and ease the tension off it. Okay, so I'm just going to hammer on the drill mark, and you can see the top is already chipped out here. So I'm going to just kind of go down at a little bit of an angle. I don't want to break this. This is my favorite screwdriver. This aluminum is a little stronger than the crude for. There it is. Okay. You can see there, completely disintegrated this arm. I just drilled it up into the shaft here and just kind of split it off. And now this half, you can see it's broken around the two sides of the pin. You can see some threads there. And usually this, you can just kind of knock it out from this side. Alright, so I'm just going to try and knock this arm out. There it is. So we basically just split the arm in half. This is how it used to sit. It was like this. So we just drill down the shaft and split it in half. And so the pin pulls out. You can see it only threads in the first half. Everything else is just a pin. And honestly, you can reuse these if you've lost it, if you haven't damaged it too much. It just holds it in place. Okay, now there's a little nylon washer that sits here just so it doesn't wear that housing while you're shifting away, and this shaft will just pull all the way out. Just leave that there. Okay, now on the Alpha Gen 1s, this was the original seal keeping the water out. You can see there, it's such a stupid tiny little seal. In fact, I could probably just pop it out with this without even trying. Let's see here. They're really prone to failing. In this case, I think that's what happened. They're so tiny, and they're a single lip, and that's the exhaust gases going by there. So it's kind of like they get hot and they just get melted. Especially, look at that. It's just this tiny little seal. Can you believe that? So what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate how to remove the old bushing, and we're going to update it to the newer style bushing, which is 1,000 times better. It takes 2 seals and they pretty much don't fail. So, alright, so what I have here is a very long 3/8 bolt. It's got ruined threads, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just feed it down through the bottom there, and I'm going to catch the lip of that bushing, and I'm just going to tap it out. Shouldn't put up too much of a fight. Just keep changing sides. There it is. So that's the old style, and I will get one of the newer ones and we'll install that, and I'll show you how much better it is. Okay, so I'm just Loctiting this new bushing because it's metal on metal, and Loctite doesn't actually shear much. So I've never really tried this method of hammering it. I've usually used the bolt, so I'm really not going to make any promises that this is going to work, but let's find out. I'm going to have to position this on the edge of the table here. And get this down here with the 3/8. Oh, this one's got the damaged threads, of course. Okay, give me a moment. Let me get one that... Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken like a flange bolt, put it upside down, and I've screwed the bolt through just a little bit for a washer, because the inside diameter of this seal is 3/8, so you don't want to be ramming a threaded thing through there. So I've just left enough where I can gently screw it, but I'm not pushing it through, and that just keeps it centered. Once I'm on the washer and the Loctite, you're just going to hammer it in till it's all the way in. You'll feel it sound change. Just gently rotate this out, and there it is. It's installed. It does stick out like that. That's how it's designed. Much better design. There's 2 seals in there, and there you can see it's nice and flush with the top. So we'll clean this up and put a nylon washer back in there for wear. See, this is salt water for sure. This is definitely not fresh water. So I'm going to say that I am aware that there is a bushing down here, but they never go bad. You don't have to bother changing that. The only reason we're changing this top bushing is because we're changing the seal in the bushing, and it's actually only the seal we're worried about at this time, so it's kind of like a 2-in-1. So deal with all this stuff. Alright. Now this is a very deluxe transom kit, because hey presto, it comes with a new shift arm, which is rare, very rare. So it's not often that those things leak. It's not very common. I really haven't found it all that much, but you know, I guess it does happen enough. So we'll just clean this little washer up and put a little bit of grease on this before we put it in there, and we'll get the new shift arm back in there. Alright, so before we put this back up, you'll notice there's a lot of buildup over here, and usually just make sure, I just give it a very hard wipe with some paper towel. Don't scratch it, but just try and clean it up. I'll put it on the side of the wire wheel brush quick and just give it a quick polish. Okay, so I've just pulled a new one out of the bag, and all we're going to do is just get this in a little. You see I cleaned it up nice where these seals ride, and I'm going to put a little bit of grease up in here, because that really just keeps the seals kind of a little lubricated. And then we're going to slide this up gently, and bear in mind this shoe has to face forward, so we'll just do that. And I'll come back out and just put some more around here, just to keep it nice and greased in those seals. There we go. That's very good. Okay, and I'll get a little bit more down here. This is that nylon washer. This one's in good shape. Put a bit of grease on that. Okay. Now get the new shift arm. Alright, so we're going to put this back in, but as we know, they like to seize up. So what are we going to do? Grease the snot out of it, the pin, the threads, and this thing, especially on the threads, because that's where they like to seize. Just get some grease in this whole cavity, and then just make sure that we're getting it everywhere. Make sure the grease is going in the threads. Or is this not threading? Oh, that's the wrong side. There it is. A little tight. It's supposed to be that tight. That's good. It's nice and tight that it's not going to come loose easily. So we'll run the grease in there. We'll back it out. Pick up some more grease. Okay, now when we go to put it on the shaft, just put a little bit more here on the bottom. Just like this. This is on top of the nylon washer. And there's only really, oh, I got it backwards, my bad. This is the nylon washer side. Okay, there's only one way it can go in. So you just have to line up the hole with the hole and then goop it with even more grease. And then just run this in. Knowing that the next guy that has to take this off is not going to be fighting it. And just make sure that you're not crazy tight, and then just fill that with grease. Okay, now what we're also going to do is we're going to definitely grease this wheel, because it has to pretty much keep rolling as you shift. Just keep it nice in there, and that's the shift arm pretty much ready to go in. Okay, now I'm going to demonstrate to you here. If you took your shift cable out and the socket went in on this side, you can pretty much just run the cable through as did. But as I've mentioned in different videos, some of the older Gen 1s, the shift cable nut is actually on the back side here. It's very hard to get to, and it's actually kind of ridiculous because you just, it's a pain. So if this is on the boat and your drive is off and you don't see a nut over there and you have a nut over here, you can just angle grind straight through the cable here, slide a 9/16 socket over that and unscrew that little end. That'll still allow you to pull the cable through, but you don't want to replace it with a style. You want to have the newer updated version where the nut is on the outside and it screws in from here. Now what you might find is if you do for some reason have the really old version, this is a pipe tap. It's a 1/4 inch pipe tap, regular. This is tapered. Now the spec for the tool is a straight, but I've used this for years. I've never had a problem. Just don't run it all the way through. You might have to just run this through these threads over here just to clean them up a little bit. You see this is turning easy because the cable came out from here, but you can see where it starts kind of bottoming out. The tap is not even in. Let's just see. I'm just doing this by hand. I'm not even touching anything. It's kind of stopping over there. That's about 3/4 of the threads are gone and 1/4 is showing. And that's about as far as you want to run in just a regular pipe tap. And you're going to need a long one like this, or you have to get a regular one and weld a socket on, because you can't get a socket in here. That's just how they designed it once again. Okay, so that clears the shift cables. We're going to stop there and we're going to start anew when we go to put this on the boat. This is your water pump O-ring. Just pull this out. This is still in good shape. These hardly go bad, but it's just good to clean that out and put a new one in. All right, we're going to fire up a new video for the install into the pod. Thanks, guys.